All right, our goal is to identify clauses and phrases. And the best way to learn how to identify something is to, or how to identify between two things is to look at what makes them different. And so I have a compare and contrast chart ready to go for clauses and phrases. But before we get to the differences, let's talk about the similarities, and that is that clauses and phrases are both a group of words. You could call it a word group. And just to make it a little bit more specific, they're always going to be meaningful. So as long as you have two or more words that are meaningful, you're going to have a clause or a phrase. So what's the difference? Well, it comes down to this: subjects and verbs. In other words, clauses have subjects and verbs, and phrases do not. A phrase could have a subject or a verb. It could have no subjects or verbs. But what it never has is a subject and a verb together, whereas clauses have subjects and verbs. So that's the difference. Let's talk about some examples here. He laughed. He laughed as a subject and a verb. He is a subject. It's what the clause is about. Laughing, he is showing what the subject is doing. It's an action verb. So he laughed is a clause. Now, you heard me slip and say sentence earlier. And you may be thinking, isn't this a sentence? Don't sentences have to have subjects and verbs? And you would be correct. So what makes a sentence different from a clause? Well, it's simply this: a period. If I say he laughed, put a period on it, I'm done. That's all I wanted to say. But if I wanted to say more, if I wanted to say he laughed at her beard, well, in that case, I wasn't done. I needed to say at her beard. So he laughed is an incomplete sentence because I wanted to finish it by saying what he laughed at. So he laughed is a clause because it is not complete. So here's an example of a phrase, two different examples of phrases. First, I said if it could have a subject or a verb. So what if I said laughed loudly? That would be an example of a phrase because, yes, we have a verb, but we do not have a subject. It begs the question, who laughed loudly? Then you can have phrases that have neither a subject or a verb, like this. At her beard. There is no subject and there is no verb in this. All right, yes, there are some nouns, but they are not acting as subjects because subjects are nouns that the sentence is about. So let's do some practice here. I'm going to answer a few questions from this test. And I'm not really answering questions. I'm going to identify whether or not the group of words are clauses and phrases. So here's the first one. He works hard every day. Here's how I'm going to identify. I'm going to ask myself, is there a subject and a verb? If there is, it's a clause. If there's not, it's a phrase. He works hard every day. Is there a noun that the sentence is about? Is there a subject? Yes, it's he. And is there a verb that the subject is doing or being linked to? Yes, works. So he works, you have a subject and a verb. It's got to be a clause. Here's the next one, before the next night. Is there a subject? Well, I don't even see a noun, so there's certainly not a subject. It's got to be a phrase. In a dark and dangerous hallway. All right. Now, is there a subject in this one? In a dark and dangerous hallway. There's a noun, hallway. Is the sentence about the hallway? I don't know. Maybe it could be. But then we look at this word right here, in. Now, is there a verb in a dark and dangerous hallway? I'm not seeing a verb anywhere. Not a linking verb, not an action verb. So the sentence couldn't be about the hallway because we have no verb showing what the hallway is being linked to or done. So this is a phrase because there was no verb. If I need to call you, is there a subject? Is there a verb? And the answer, I is a subject. Need to call. All right, so call is a verb, so you got a subject, you got a verb, it's a clause. After a good day. Is there a subject? I don't think so. Is there a verb? Certainly not a verb. So if you don't have a subject and a verb, it's got to be a phrase. So I think you catch my drift when I say clauses are subjects and verbs. Clauses have subjects and verbs, and phrases don't. That's the difference. They're both meaningful groups of words. Now, practice identifying them. And once you can master this, once you can identify the difference between clauses and phrases, it's going to help you a lot in understanding grammar rules.